Cool. So my presentation keeps going in and out. We'll see how this goes. You guys can see it, so that's how we're doing it. Let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you so much for joining me. I know we've talked about maps a couple of different times. I know that it's been on our minds for a really long time. I just went back and looked, and I attended Fort Belvoir Industry Days in 2024 when the Army was just talking about consolidating IDIS 3 and RS 3. And so it's really cool to be able to talk about this final RFP today because we've been waiting a long time for this. We've been waiting to see what they would do and how they would consolidate this. And I've just loved how confident their office has been and that this is the right way forward. So let's get into it. A little bit about us. We are Trident. We are service-disabled veteran-owned small business, and we've been around for, I think somebody did the math and it's like 18 years, but we've been around since about 2008. And we are a geographically dispersed collection of proposal managers, capture experts, and SMEs in the federal contracting arena. We aim to bring you military level professionalism and client-centric excellence so that you can grow your business and thrive in the federal contracting arena. Our goal is to let you submit compelling and compliant proposals confidently and kind of take the load off your back so you can continue to deliver the wonderful things that you do to your clients with our help. We are known for hiring military spouses and veterans. And so that's where I come from. I'm a 2012 Naval Academy grad. I was a surface warfare officer and a naval gunfire liaison officer and finished up my gig as an administrative officer working POM execution and working with civilians. I've been a proposal manager since I left the Navy, so since 2018, and now take care of sales for our company. My fun fact for you today is that I beat my entire family in Super Smash Brothers this past weekend. And I'm going to ride that high probably until tomorrow when they beat me again. But I'll tell you what, my 8-year-old has really started to figure this out. She showed up and had all the moves for the character she was playing. And I was just trying to be Jigglypuff and make them all go to sleep. So I'm proud that I won this past weekend. I'm surely going to be usurped soon. Our agenda today is to talk about maps again, but to go into this time a little bit more about the domains and the award intentions, as well as the new submission requirements, or I guess the refined final submission requirements, and what you should do or how you should approach this going forward. So let's get into it. This feels repetitive. I think you've seen this slide many times, but here we are finally at the end of this long 2-year journey. Marketplace for Acquisition of Professional Services. So this is the U.S. Army Professional Services Contract. It is the consolidation of what used to be the IDIS 3S, the services contract for the IDIS Enterprise Solutions, and RS 3. Those two offices work together to craft what MAPS has become, and they work together to figure out the requirements and make it really what it is today. Big opportunity, $50 billion ceiling with about a 10-year period of performance that they anticipate using. They do intend to on and off ramp, maybe, but they've kept the pool of awardees, and we'll talk about that a little later, pretty small. So on and off ramping is probably not going to be similar to Oasis Plus and how they've done continuously open. They're probably going to keep this contract opportunity pretty tight and close hold. This is a strict compliance scorecard-based evaluation. So you either meet the screening questions and the screening criteria and have a really good score on the scorecard, or this isn't the opportunity for you. And we're going to try to hammer that home pretty hard today because there are going to be companies that have a perfect score on this opportunity. And if your company isn't achieving a perfect score in your initial self score, this may not be the right opportunity for you. I mean, we'd be happy to talk to you about other opportunities that may better fit your company. Even if it isn't, I'm really glad you're here today because what we're seeing in the contracting landscape is that requirements for contracts are becoming a little bit more universal. And so looking at some of these larger MAIDIQs and large contract vehicles is really beneficial for you, especially if you're a small business or especially if you're a large business, because we're going to start to see these requirements reflected across every single contract in the future. And so if you are looking at maps and it's not the right opportunity for you, it's important to pay attention to the certifications and things that they're prioritizing, because those are the things we're going to see reflected in other contract opportunities over the next couple of years. Again, we've seen this. We use this slide all the time for this brief. So you've probably seen this a million times. But now I finally get to put in a submission due date. Yep, see, my presentation has really been great for me today. I was warned not to have slide transitions, and now here it is. This is why you don't have slide transitions, because your computer will not let you do it. Okay, but anyway, we're back. We now have submission due date. So this opportunity is due May 1st. If you're looking at your calendar screaming a little bit because it's April 10th and you haven't done anything, that's okay, because of the beauty of scorecards somewhat is that you can really get your contract documentation and your proof points together rather quickly. There are a couple of things that I'm going to draw your attention to with your submission that require your contacts at your contracting clients. And so you will have to have certifications from your clients. So you do need a hustle in order to submit by May 1st, but there is still time. Again, we're going to see a variety of contract types at the task order level, and other federal agencies can access this. So this is a great opportunity for you if you service the U.S. government and the U.S. Army, particularly in those 5 NICS code domains. We'll get into that too. Right now, so those 5 domains are the artist formerly known as Technical Services, which is now known as Engineering, Logistics, and Operational Services. That's 541330. Management and Advisory, 541611. RDT&E, 541715. Emerging IT Services, 541512, and Foundational IT Services, 541519. You can propose on any of these domains. You just have to specify which one you want to propose on, and that's how you'll submit your paperwork. The beauty of this is that they're going to award 70 contracts per domain. So if we think about this in terms of the max number of companies that could end up on this contract, that would be 350 different companies if one individual company received one domain. Is that likely? Absolutely not. Instead, what we're going to see is a large business who can cover multiple domains, an emerging large business who can cover multiple domains, small businesses who maybe are particularly fat, who can compete on multiple domains, and commercial sector vendors that cover multiple domains. So what is more likely to happen is that we would see something closer to the lower end of companies being eligible or winning awards across maps. I would estimate that we would probably see at the end of this 100 to 120 different companies receiving an award on maps. So that would be several large businesses, emerging large businesses, small businesses, and commercial sector vectors having multiple domain awards, if that makes sense. What that means is that scorecard is going to be very competitive. That, like I said earlier, there's companies that are going to be able to compete across domains with nearly perfect or perfect scores. And so that's something that we're going to want to really evaluate when you're considering this option. But if you're looking at this list and you're like, what the heck is an emerging large business? This is one of the things that I have really appreciated about maps in comparison to some of the other large contract vehicles, is this creation of an emerging large business. And what this means is that this is somebody who is no longer considered a small business by the SBA size standards within their domain. So they've become other than small within the last 5 years. And they have an average annual revenue that doesn't exceed $250 million. There's a way to calculate that, and they've included updates in the most recent amendment about how to calculate that. Essentially, you'll take your total revenue receipts and divide them by 5 over the last 5 years. The beauty of this is that what we're seeing on some of the other contract vehicles is that in execution, it's really hard for a tiny large business to compete with a really large business. When we're talking about these huge companies that have been contracting with the government for years and just have access to enterprise size resources, it becomes really hard for small or large businesses to compete at the task order level. And so to have a category like emerging large business is a really cool change based really on the feedback that you guys provided to this office. This has been one of the most responsive offices in terms of feedback from industry. And so this is one of the really cool things that they've done with that. So we see an emerging large business category. What do you do to prove that? You provide your financial statements that show that you haven't exceeded that $250 million. And you provide a history of your SAM.gov size change, or an SBA determination letter that shows that you've changed size. One of the other options they've given to us is this commercial sector vendor. And so a commercial sector vendor is an offerer who has not performed within the last 4 years a government contract, essentially. So if your company has taken a break from government contracting, or you've been away from it for 4 years, or if you've never had a contract with the government, you can still compete on maps. You just have to provide registration that you have actually registered with SAM in our company now. So really cool opportunities for companies that either are struggling to compete in a large business pool or have never worked with the US government yet. So cool innovation here for MAPS. Let's talk about the evaluation process of what they're actually going to do when you have completed the scorecard. We'll get to what you have to submit in a little bit, but let's talk about how they're going to look at what you've submitted first. They're going to break this down into 4 phases. They'll initially rank everybody based on your own self-score. So if you say you got a perfect score, you're right there at the top of the pile. If you say you got 100 out of 130,000, then you're probably at the bottom of the pile. And they're going to chop the highest scores, and they're only going to look at those top performers. They're then going to look through those top performers, and they're going to mark you down. They're going to go through and say, I'm not sure that really counts. I'm going to take off 2,000 points. Oh, I don't see the right justification for this. I'm going to take off 4,000 points until you start to fall down in that list below the rest of the competitive thresholds. So they're going to move you down, scrap you if you fall below. Okay. Then they're going to move somebody up, and then they're going to review that. So it's kind of this like cyclical rolling until they get the top 70 contracts per domain based on that breakdown that we saw on the previous slide. They will then look at them once we've made it to phase 3 and we have that preliminary prospective awardees list. They're going to run your business through the responsibility procedures using that DORA bot, and they're going to look at large business and emerging large business subcontracting plans. So if at any point during this phase 3, one of those preliminary prospective awardees falls out, they'll just replace it with somebody next on the list to get to their 70 final awardees for that phase 4. If you'll notice, I did not say that they're going to add points. So the government is not looking through your documentation and saying, oh, man, you guys really forgot that you had an ISO 9001 certification. It's okay. I'll just color in your points there. Absolutely not. They are only knocking you down. They are only making downward adjustments. And so there are 2 things you can take away from this evaluation process. One, your evidence needs to be really good and really careful and meticulous in how you present your scorecard justifications and your contract evidence. If you have messed up your evidence, then you're not going to get those points and you're going to be knocked out of the competition. Second, and perhaps more importantly in terms of whether you should bid or not bid on maps, is that scorecard ranking. If you are going into this with 100,000 points, it's a little bit risky for you to compete in this market. Our general recommendation is that you should be aiming for 85 to 90% of the total points available for a competition like this. That really means that you should be looking at a score of 117,000 points on your scorecard. Now, that being said, that's just an estimate. We have no idea how industry is going to break out in terms of point spread on this opportunity and where people are going to be, especially with CMMC still being a part of this. So there is opportunity for you to compete, especially if people can't supply the right evidence. So it really is something that you should evaluate, but we do caution you that if you can't beat that point spread, this may not be the right opportunity for you. We also would like you to think a little bit about execution. While initially MAPS had a participation requirement, that participation requirement is gone, but they do talk about strict off-ramping. After the first calendar year, if you have any task orders that result in cost overrun, marginal or unsatisfactory CPARs, a vacancy rate of 10% or more, time to fill over 60 days, or not submitting a deliverable, you're going to be off-ramped. If you fail to complete your CMMC certification and the timeline that they provide for you, you're going to be off-ramped. And so what they're really trying to do is make sure that they're keeping quality vendors who will be competitive within this pool. 70 contracts per domain is not a lot. And so they're trying to keep everybody who willing and wanting to participate in a way that their clients are satisfied with. And so off-ramping is one of the ways that they're going to maintain that pool. And then for the rest of us who maybe don't necessarily get on MAPS in the first go, off-ramping may provide opportunities for you guys to get on later on. So let's talk about what you actually need in order to submit. This is also one of the cooler, can proposals be cool? I don't know. Well, that can be a whole philosophical discussion later, but I really like the neatness of MAPS. There are 3 volumes now in the final submission: a cover letter, your screening questions, and your scorecard, and your past performance. If you're emerging or large business, you'll also need to provide a small business subcontracting plan. And the beauty is that that cover letter, those past performance letters, and that subcontracting plan can be reused across all of your domains. The only thing you would need to update if you're competing on multiple domains is that that scorecard, because that scorecard is going to be domain specific based on the qualifying projects that you use. This is really cool. This is really neat. There's no narrative need there. This is a very black and white submission. You either have the experience that they're looking for or you don't, and that's it. The first part of that, you either have it or you don't, is the screening questions. This is the point in the webinar where if you don't have these things, you're not competing on MAPS. You have to have evidence of all of these things in order to move forward. So you're going to have to pull your CPARs for, I think it's over the last 3 years, for all of the NICS codes identified across the domains. You're going to have to show that you either have 5%, no more than 5% marginal or below, no more than 10%, or no more than 5% scored marginal below, depending on your business size. You're going to have a secret facility clearance pretty universally, unless you're a commercial sector vendor. And then obviously you wouldn't have a secret facility clearance just yet. Everybody's got to have some level of CMMC certification, the base level being that self-certification, and then a plan to fully certify. If you are a normal business and not a commercial sector vendor, you need to have that ISO 9001, 2015 or 2013. If you're one of the larger businesses, an accounting system and a purchasing system. If you can't say yes to these in your business category, MAPS ain't it. Otherwise, if you could say yes to all of those things, we can get some extra points with some other things. I do want to draw your attention to these ridiculous cats that AI provided for me. Thank you, Copilot. I wanted to make sure that the cats were emerging for the emerging large business, and now it's just an explosion of like superhero cats in business suits. So I hope you appreciate them. If you're a large business, you get to extra points from your acceptable property management system. Same for an emerging large business. Top secret facility clearance gets people universal extra points. CMMC levels, they're graduated. So if you are on just self-certification, you get like 1,000 points. If you have it scheduled, you get 2,000 points. If you're totally complete, you get a certain number of points as well. All of these are in the scorecard point-wise, so please don't take this webinar as the final answer for which points you get. Just double check the scorecard for how many points you get for each thing. And then additional ISO certifications also get you extra points. One thing we saw in the first release, or I think actually Amendment 1 of MAPS, they've been so kind as to release 2 amendments in the past 2 days in preparation for this particular webinar. In the first amendment, we saw a point penalty for being a JV. And then in the second amendment, they very quickly removed that. And so now you get about 5,000 points for having an acceptable accounting system as a small business. I could see that this may change again, or this may, I could see this resulting in some sort of protest that could possibly delay maps just because of uh, kind of the disadvantage it puts some small businesses at. There's some rumblings online about how it's very hard for companies to get an acceptable accounting system. And so now non-JV businesses are not able to compete as effectively as JV businesses. So they've actually done the opposite of what they intended, where they originally intended to penalize a JV. Now they're kind of inadvertently awarding a JV as well. So right now you can earn extra points in these ways. The point systems are distributed on the scorecards differently per each business. Yes, yeah, that's a great point, Nicole, that the penalty against JVs is against the SBA rules. And so the penalty against JVs will not come back. But I could see them redistributing the points for a small business across the acceptable accounting system or across the facility clearance, just to make it a little bit more fair for companies that don't have that accounting system. We'll see. I'm not sure there's going to be much time for them to make grand sweeping changes to the scorecard in the next couple of days. And I imagine that they are satisfied with what they've done for the scorecard that they released with Amendment 2. So we may not see any changes. But again, these are the ways that you can earn extra points. This is in the second portion of your scorecard. So section 1 are those gate criteria screening questions. Section 2 are your systems certifications. And then section 3 is when we get into your past performance and qualifying projects. So you're able to submit 3 qualifying projects for any domain. A qualifying project is a single contract, task order, subcontract, or OTA that meets or exceeds a minimum total contract value of $2.5 million. And for the level of effort contracts, it's 1 year of completed performance within 4 years. And for the outcome ones, they were looking for a complete project within the past 4 years. Additionally, those projects have to meet certain NICS code requirements, and we're going to look at those a little bit later. Just because it can be a bit tricky because it has to be one of the overarching ones or one of the ones within each of the domains. And so it can be a bit tricky. There is a distinction between level of effort qualifying projects and outcome-based qualifying projects. So I wanted to draw your attention to those definitions. Level of effort is just that the contractor was required to provide a stated number of labor hours, either through labor categories or FTEs. So these are things like your cost reimbursement contracts, firm fixed price, time and materials, or labor hour contracts. Your outcome-based ones on the other side are things that were contracts that were agreed upon with an express result or goal or performance outcome that had to be achieved in order to be paid out. So this is the rest of the firm fixed price. This is the rest of the fixed price contracts with the exception of firm fixed price or LOE terms. This is your cost plus fixed fee completions, firm fixed price with the exception of level of effort, grants, agreements, those kind of things. If there is a hybrid, they want you to default towards the level of effort. And if it's a subcontract, it needs to reflect what the prime contract is in terms of level of effort or outcome based. There's different points that you receive for level of effort and outcome based qualifying projects. So we'll look at those here. Across all of your qualifying projects, you'll be evaluated for recency, relevance, NICS alignment, performance quality, dollar value, and pass-through rate. And then you'll look for your level of effort, you'll be looking at vacancy rates, time to fill rates. For outcome-based, it would be schedule and completeness. In order to prove all of these things, remember, evidence is truth, you'll provide attachment 3. That attachment does have 2 signed certifications. And so this is why it's important to have good relationships with those contracting party representatives or with your clients, because you will have to have them sign that attachment 3 to verify your performance. You'll also include the PWS, the SAL, the statement of work, the statement of objectives. They added another one just to make sure that it was all colored, like the technical requirements, a contract of the actual contract order or agreement, And then your past performance. If you have CPARs, you'll include those CPARs. If not, you'll use attachment 4, which is similar to the OASIS Plus JP6, but it's just a past performance verification of your experience. Again, signed by that contracting party representative. And so all of these things are needed for every single one of your projects, and it's where you're going to prove that you have that you have the things on the left, that you have NICS alignment, that you have performance quality, certain dollar value, that kind of thing. If there is a missing signature on the attachment 3, that's one reason the government will down select or downgrade your points being awarded, and they will remove an entire qualifying project. So if you're not able to get your attachment 3 signed by that contracting party representative, then that's not going to be a qualifying project for you. Okay, so when we're talking about technical capabilities for relevance and the qualifying project having to meet a certain NICS code, here we are in this beautiful eye chart. This chart gives you the NICS code that overarches. So if we zoom in, are you guys able to see my mouse? I don't know if you are. Here's the laser pointer. Cool. So if you zoom in on this portion, every single qualifying project that has to be submitted has to have either one of these NICS codes, so that 541330, 5416611, these, like we talked about on that very first slide, or if you're competing within this domain, you can go to these NICS codes, which are the second line. So what that comes down to is across this entire thing, if you don't have one of these NICS codes, it's not a qualifying project. And that can be really frustrating, especially with the way some things are coded. I could see that coming up in Q&A. I could see that being something that's addressed in a later amendment. So keep your eyes out for that change of them expanding which NICS code you're able to use, because they may get some pushback on that just because of the way some of the IDIQs code task orders. That can be really frustrating for you. But the beautiful thing about maps, and we see it a little bit on OASIS Plus, is that the government has been as clear as mud about technical capabilities and what fits within what domains. And so if you're trying to prove your technical capabilities in order to get those relevancy points, so basically you have to show that a certain percentage of the contract fits the technical capabilities within that domain. They've given you these beautiful categories. So for what was the technical and engineering domain, they've given you 7. And then RDT&E now has 6, and so do the foundational IT and emerging IT domains. They've reduced it down to 6. And so there's 6 categories. Well, they've given us lovely descriptions of what all of those 6 categories mean in vivid detail. And so this is page 5 through 9 of the 332-page solicitation, but these are just really nice descriptions of technical capabilities so that if you have a question about which domain your work makes the most sense, and this is where you should be looking of how to tie that project to that specific domain and how to flag those things that are relevant to that domain. Okay, we're going to look at just a couple more things. One of the things we really want you to consider is this final score of your self-score. Is MAPS the right opportunity for your company? This 130,000 points are available. Are you close to that? If you're not close to that, maybe MAPS is a great place for you to do some teaming with or subcontracting for another business that gets this, so that you can build up your past performance, so that you can compete on your own in the future, or maybe a JV is the right answer. This is something to really look at, because if there are going to be companies, like I said, that can hit that 130,000. So now what? So what can you do now? You should be starting your submission. The first part of your submission is registering for that digital market portal access. Everything is submitted there, and the whole solicitation and the whole submission is managed, the digital market portal access. You still have a week to submit your questions to the government. They're due April 17th, last I checked, but I could have changed that on me in the last 10 minutes because they keep submitting amendments. But really, you should be working right now on evaluating whether this is the right decision for you. While this is a neat and orderly submission in the terms of only having to submit 3 projects, this can be pretty time intensive in gathering project documentation and filling out those JP3s and reaching out to your points of contact and making sure that everything's neatly organized and uploaded into that digital market portal. And so making that bid and no bid decision early can save you a lot of money and time and effort. We have a free download that you can get right now to help you organize your project, but we also will be sending you guys along with the recording and the slide deck, so you can see those cats up close. We will be, see, my presentation hates me. We will be giving you our intake form, which is basically at the core, should you be competing for this or not. So you can take a look at that. You can answer all the questions there. And then obviously, you should be keeping track of those industry certifications. Like we've talked about, the chances of these things going away is slim. We've seen 9001 on a ton of things. And so if you don't have those things, if you don't have certain financial or business systems, where are the opportunities for you to get a government approved acceptable accounting system? Is there some way that you can cause yourself to get audited? Or is there some teaming arrangement that you can work on that can enable you to start getting these things that we're seeing multiple times on these contracts? If you're not doing CMMC, you're wrong. You should absolutely be pursuing that certification. But long term, these are great indicators of where the industry is going and what they're prioritizing. And then obviously giving your clients a heads up that you're going to need them to validate your past performance, giving them a heads up that they will need to actually sign those forms. One of the lessons learned we had from the original Oasis Plus on-ramp is that you should fill out that form entirely before you submit it to your clients to sign it. That makes it super easy for them to just click the sign and send it back to you with everything as you expect it. If you leave it up to them, your past performance may not come back graded like you thought it would be. And you can or they may take extra time to do it, which may impact your ability to submit on time and then therefore bid. So sometimes doing the legwork for them can be beneficial for you. If you don't have a good relationship with them, please don't do that because they may find it pretentious. But otherwise, yeah, fill it out, give yourself a great rating, and then get them to sign it and get it back to you. We also would love to talk to you about whether you think this is a good opportunity for you. I'm happy to talk to you. Travis has done a couple of eligibility checks already on our team. And so we'd love to talk to you about whether or not you should bid on MAPS, or if not MAPS, where else we can go if you're looking for a larger contract vehicle. Like I said, we keep our blog up to date, and you can discover Amendment number 3 when it comes out. It's going to come out probably today. Amendment number 3 or 4 or 5 or 10. Here on our blog, we'll keep it up to date. And then we also have that free download and that intake form that we'll send along to you. We'd love for you to subscribe to our webinar series if you're interested, to subscribe to our newsletter where we post all sorts of federal government, GovCon information, events, and such. Follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube. What else can you subscribe to? We got them all. Here are all of these, and we managed to get through that in record time, so plenty of time to pepper me with questions if you have it. This is also where you can email us. We've got a webinars at tridentproposals.com. You can also email me directly at Kiley at tridentproposals.com. That's Kiley at tridentproposals, plural.com. And I'd happily answer any of your questions about MAPS or any other opportunities you have coming up. We do have support options that are outside of these major contract vehicles and MAIDIQs. So if you do find yourself kind of overwhelmed this summer with your staffing or with opportunities that are coming down your pipeline, I'd love to talk to you about how our team can support you. We're geographically dispersed, which means you can go to bed on the East Coast and wake up to tech edit a document overnight, or the graphics inserted in from Guam or from Hawaii. We're happy to help you with any of your proposal needs. Please feel free to reach out. I don't see any other questions or anything. I do see cute little applause, so thank you for putting up with me. I don't see any jokes, so you all have to stay until you give me a joke to share with my kids. So, type it in the chat. Help me out a little bit. They keep asking me for one. Um, I'm not sure if it's the exact same portal. I want to say yes, it is. Sorry, the question is the chess portal where we submitted. They call it the digital market portal, and I believe that's the chess portal as well. They do have a link to it in the actual solicitation. For sure. It's not the Symphony portal. That's pretty much what's important. Yeah. Can you tell I'm bitter, a little bit bitter and overworked about Oasis Plus? I'm excited for maps because it's different. Yay. Thank you guys so much for attending.